Minister, the purpose of this bill is to address the inconsistency which exists across the state in respect of both the availability of services and the type of services which are accessible to autistic children and adults through the implementation of a cross-departmental, multi-agency autism strategy. No strategy has been put in place here in Ireland since the European Commission approved the Charter of Rights for People with Autism back in 1996. The Charter states that autistic people should have the same rights enjoyed by all EU citizens, and their rights should be enforced by legislation. This has yet to happen in Ireland after a quarter of a century. This bill seeks to do that by providing for the development and implementation of a cross-departmental, multi-agency strategy to provide and implement services for all autistic people. A motion was passed, as you know, in Dáil Éireann with strong cross-party support for the establishment of an all-party Oireachtas committee that would be mandated to produce an autism strategy for Ireland within 6 months. This has yet to happen. Autism, as we know, is complex, and two of the biggest battles that parents of autistic children have is firstly getting a diagnosis, and then after that long, tortuous diagnosis struggle, the inaccessibility of regular supports, all of which contribute to the occurrence of regression in autistic children's interpersonal and educational skills, which of course has been compounded by the current pandemic. And it is the very same story across the board for parents, where issues only begin to arise when they go either to preschool or to primary school. I'm presently dealing with a case of Mary and her son David, who is in 4th class. They've had to go private to secure a diagnosis because of the current waiting list for a CAMS referral, and an OT assessment and an educational psychological assessment. They are forced to go down this road, borrowing from grandparents, because David would be in secondary school before he would get access to any of the appointments to the current public system due to the horrendous waiting list. Now, after forking out for a private educational assessment, the family now finds itself in a position of having to go and make up the grant shortfall of €800 for an assistive technology, because the Department of Education will only fund a basic laptop and not the specific laptop recommended by the educational psychologist to meet David's needs. This is before the family begin to look at the additional cost of equipment required for various therapies which can assist David. His mum has been advised that he is likely in a couple of years to need physiotherapy to assist him with his condition. With the current waiting list, this means ideally he needs to be placed on a waiting list now in a preemptive move to ensure that he can access such services when he actually needs them. David has qualified for the incapacitated child credit, but yet his mother has been refused the domiciliary care allowance. How can we say a child is incapacitated on one hand, but does not require additional attention beyond that of a child of similar age from another government department? The financial pressure placed on this family, or any other family for that matter, in a full-time caring role is horrendous. A recent study from the National University of Ireland, Galway, found that the average annual cost for families of an autistic child amounted to more than €28,000, which is related to private services, lost income and informal care. But what about families whose grandparents are not in a position to pay for such interventions, and where they are at the mercy of the ever-growing public waiting list? The state is failing in its obligation to provide early intervention and support that these children urgently need. Surely it makes more sense to invest in our children early, so that these children can reach their full potential and actively contribute to our society and the tax system in future. But this can only happen if the right supports are put in place as early as possible, rather than failing to meet their needs and potentially being forced to support them through the social welfare system into adulthood. The regional group have put forward this bill, restored this bill, and intend to make numerous amendments to the bill at committee stage, especially in relation to the terminology within the current draft of the bill. The bill, as you know, was introduced initially by Senator James Riley, the former Minister for Health, and passed all stages in the Seanad and fell due to the dissolution of the Dáil in January 2020. The regional members now look forward to working with all Oireachtas parties and stakeholders to ensure that this legislation is fit for purpose and successful, and that it will be a game changer for autistic people as it will enshrine their rights into law.